You ready for another construction update? Because we're starting today in Marvel Land because we've got some interesting developments that we spotted. We're going to stop right here, right away, because now I didn't notice this, but Dustin, who looks at our construction footage every week, noticed a couple interesting developments over this week and then last week as well, which definitely thought-provoking. We've been mocking them for their weird antenna thing that they installed on top of this building on the far left. And Dustin noticed that that thing is new. Not only is it new, I mean, it looks different than the rest of the antenna, but it blends in. But it's also new. That wasn't there last week. Here's a look at last week's. And you can see that white pole, tower, whatever you want to call it, is not there, which means it's got actual purpose. It's not just scenery or aesthetic like the other antenna are. This thing has purpose. And then I wondered, and well, Dustin mentioned, and it's likely has to do with the Spider-Man stunt show, because you'll notice that the camera on the building to its right is pointed down and at it, which made me think, hey, wait a second, how long has that camera been there? Well, just 2 weeks, because that's 2 weeks ago. That camera did not exist, and nor did the pole. So they've added a camera, and in 1 week, and then the next week, this week, they've added that pole or tower or standard of some kind. And there's also, it looks like, it's hard to tell what those attachments are on there. Those look like cables, similar to what you might, they could hoist, right? Those look like they could hoist something. Very, very curious. I would really like to know what that, because you figure all you need is one location to launch Spidey from, and then one location for him to land. I wonder now that Dustin had mentioned something in his comments to me. He says that the video is pointing down there to see if possibly there was any sort of difficulty with the show. Should something fail, should something break, should something happen, they want to be able to abort the show. But my thought was, when I first read that, well, why would they need to do that? Why would they need to bother with that if that's the end? If he's landing down there, that's the end of it. And then it's not like they got to, it's not like they have to have him come out of there and do more. They're going to have an actor come out and do the rest, right? If there's more. But what if they launch him again? What if those are they don't look like they're pointing in the right direction. So I may be out of my mind, but that would explain why they need a camera down there. If the stuntronic Spidey has more to do after he lands, if they have to wow, that would be something. By the way, this also kind of goes towards, as we pan to the right, those cameras that we were looking at last week and the week before in that white tower, which I think I'm not going to settle in on there, but somebody had mentioned, we have two thoughts on this. Somebody had mentioned that those weren't necessarily for security or anything like that. It could be actually, but for the construction site. And I'm going to show you something in a minute that would probably back that statement up, but it could also be for show. We had two comments. One said that's for the Spider-Man show specifically, and another said that's for the construction site, to monitor the construction site. It makes sense that this would be for the show because it's part of the monitoring process to see how the show's going, but it's in a location that doesn't really lend itself towards seeing anything of note. But it is useful for looking at the construction site and having 24-hour views of the construction site. Which takes us to Cars Land, Luigi's, where we got a new view of some vertical construction happening. And at first I thought maybe this was Doctor Strange, that little show they're doing. But I'm not sure if they would be going vertical in this way. And then I went over the wall a little bit to take a peek. I didn't get any video, but I took a peek to see where it was in relation. Really what that is, that's not even in Avengers Campus proper. That's actually what you're seeing there is located more the entrance. That area between Cars Land and Bugs Land where you'd walk by and you could see the bugs out there in the planted areas before you enter Bugs Land. That's about where this is. That's actually that's the merge between Cars Land and Avengers Campus. So I'm not sure. Dustin thinks they're maybe building some sort of sightline type deal, maybe a privacy wall, or just some sort of frame to create an entrance, a more formal entrance between Cars Land and Avengers Campus. That's got to be a difficult, when you think about it, that's got to be a very difficult transition between those two lands, because those are two lands that do not. People were worried about Star Wars and Frontierland. Easy. Star Wars and Critter Country. Easy. Cars Land and Avengers Campus. That's a little bit harder, I think. So good luck to Disney in trying to create a transition between those two lands. I haven't thought about that yet. It's funny. Nobody talked about that. Nobody talked about the transition between the two lands. Nobody talked about their worrying about the aesthetic transformation from one land to the other. Why is that? Because we don't apply the same standard to DCA, I guess. I don't know. But, I mean, people were losing their minds over how Star Wars was going to fit into Disneyland, which turned out to be super, super easy. This is complicated. Oh, and one more thing I mentioned previously when we were talking about the entrance to Avengers Campus and the white towers with the cameras. I found another set just like it here at the entrance to Avengers Campus from Cars Land. I'm not sure which argument this supports. I guess it doesn't support the idea that it's for show. It does support the idea that this is for watching the construction progress, I suppose, or it supports the idea that these are themed light and camera fixtures for transition areas from one land to Avengers Campus. Here's a long view from the Pixar pal around, and like last week, not much to see here until we get to the right, which eventually I'm going to get over there. I couldn't see. It was raining when I filmed this. Look at that. What is that? What is that? And the reason why I'm flabbergasted is because that does not exist in the concept art as far as I know. Let's stop. I was not expecting to see this, and I cannot for the life of me figure out what this could be for unless it's temporary. Here's the concept art. And we have it focused in on the entirety of the Spider-Man footprint. And the area in question is this area right here, which there's nothing vertical happening on that roof. Now, it looks, if you watch the Star Wars Land construction videos, you saw what we call the two warts, or actually there was three, that turned out to be elevators. And that looks similar to that, but you can't, or can you? I don't know. Can you retcon a building like this to simply add an elevator after you've already built so much of its infrastructure? I don't know, but it doesn't exist in the concept art, and it doesn't seem to have any sort of place. It just doesn't jive here, and I'm curious if anybody can identify what is happening inside. Can you identify anything that's going on in there? I don't know. To me, this feels temporary. It has to be temporary. But why? No, that is not temporary. Scaffolding is temporary, but there's steel there. That looks fixed. That looks built in. Moving on to the right to look at the cast member building that they're putting up behind Luigi's Rollicking Roadsters. And they're moving quickly. And at first I thought, well, that's strange. It isn't strange in the sense that this building can be built much faster than a traditional show building might be built, because it's not as complex. Not anything near as complex as, a show building. So it would move more quickly. It's like building an office building. But this is super quick still. And Dustin reminded me, one good reason why that would be is because they want to finish this facade as quickly as possible. So they're going to fast track this particular view. They're going to put their cladding up there super fast, so that they can beautify that image as fast as possible. They don't want you looking at an exposed building for too long, or even some goofy scrim. Although the scrim does a nice job of covering things, it's still very obvious. So I have a feeling that Dustin is right, and they're going to try to fast track that facade and then build out the rest of the stuff if possible, at a normal pace. So hopefully we'll get to see something that resembles a finished product in short order. Back over to Avengers Campus just to see if we can find anything new here, but this is all pretty typical. Very, there's a lot of steel and scaffolding, so much so that it's consumed the Avengery building. We can't really see much, but you can see that there's progress happening with all that angular steel. It's starting to take shape and starting to look like the building that we've seen in the concept art. Man, that's a lot of stuff going on down there. Meanwhile, over at the mission breakout side, those crafty dudes put up a scrim so we can't see over the wall, which makes sense because you can really see pretty well up there. So we probably won't, there's not much to see here anymore ever again. Sorry. Okay, back to Disneyland. Hey, the weather, as is often the case, wreaked a little havoc on Snow White, so I thought I'd get some video of how it looks under Snow White Scary Adventures looks under scaffolding. Not pretty. Now, we talked about the possibility of there being a new paint job on the facade of Snow White. Ian pointed out that he thinks that the colors are a little bit more whitewashed, a little brighter on the scrim. And then we've also heard Disney say that they want to try to create some symmetry or whatever. They want to blend it with Sleeping Beauty Castle. And we thought, well, that's kind of strange. I really liked the Gothic stonework that they have at Snow White, and I was hoping they wouldn't do this. But I had it, as I was looking at this on Saturday, and I said, okay, there's that stonework. And it reminded me that they changed the stonework for the castle. Remember that? That's new. That design is new. Do you think that they might change Snow White to look like that, or even this? The same color scheme. What do you think? So maybe not the bright pinks and blues, because God forbid that would be horrendous if you ask me. But what if they blended the stone work to match either, that part of the castle or the part that was on top of Peter Pan? I might be okay with that. I don't know. Let's continue. I found this on top of the peak at the carousel. I assume that that's some sort of like a ladder, they had attached to the top of the carousel, so workers could go up there and work on it, paint it, do whatever they have to do. And then Dustin also pointed out that the top of that thing has an emergency, fall protection mechanism. An engineer would attach himself to a harness, and then if he were to fall, that thing, it works like a seatbelt, he says. You know how when you pull a seatbelt really slow, you can just extend it all the way, but if you try to pull it really fast, it locks in. Same way. So it senses whether or not if you've fallen, if there's a quick drop, it just immediately catches and it stops your fall. That's pretty cool. You know what else is pretty cool is that door was open Friday night, and I got to peek inside. And I know video because, I didn't do that, but I did see it with my eyes, and it kind of shook me a little bit because what I saw in there was basically nothing. All the horses were gone. They have taken out all the horses, and there was just scaffolding and the base of the carousel on which the horses are attached. So they're either taking them out so they can paint the horses again, or they're taking them out so they can work on the carousel. It makes sense, but I'm not second guessing why they did that. It's very striking to the eye to see a naked carousel like it is, like it's just been abandoned. Very, very disturbing. And we'll wrap with back at DCA for Grizzly River Run, and just typical progress. They're going to be putting down the remaining steel guide rails there shortly. Here's an update on the paint for the rocks at the finale of Grizzly River Run. You can see there again the little rapids creator thing there. By the way, here's a fun comparison. This is how it looked 2 weeks ago when we first found the paint job. It was all completely white, and now they've added a couple different layers of color. There are greens and browns, etc. And you can even see over there on that same area where the Rapids creator is. That was just a dingy brown, and now they've added all that white to that section of rock there. And then finally, I just thought this would be fun to show you. There's a geyser. I saw that. That's where the big giant geysers shoot out. So that's cool also. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Fresh baked. We've got lots more videos for you to see, so grab a churro and check out some of our other videos and have your mind blown by how much fun we're having. We truly are the best of Disney Bake Fresh Daily. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time. Fresh baked.